So how do we fit all this into our annual training plan? Okay, so changing the program every 3 to 6 weeks. Critical that you keep lifting beyond the base phase and progress through the hypertrophy and max strength phase. We talked about that earlier, but just in case you're just joining us now, if you don't keep lifting beyond those phases, you're actually opening yourself up to injury because of limiting the balance at the joints and your technique, things like that. That comes into major play as the ride, run, whatever, as your training time outside of the gym increases. That becomes very, very, very critical. So what about time? If you are a little short on time, 45, 60-minute sessions. If that's too much, there's other strategies. But foam rolling, 5 to 8 minutes. Dynamic warm-up, 5 to 8 minutes. The rest of the time, lift. That should be the rest of the time right here. You can do this twice a week and have one session just be a full-blown session, especially early on in the season. If you are someone who is really short on time, then maybe we need to think about decreasing the amount of time that you're doing an endurance session versus the amount of time you're lifting. Maybe we take away an endurance training day to add a full lifting day. And as the training time starts to increase and the demand for that time starts to increase, we could take away that lifting session and stack it on top of an endurance session, like right after or right before. And that's going to allow you to have more time, or more productive time. So just keep that in mind. Kind of breaking this down into different phases. Again, this isn't a catch-all, but this is a great place to start. Base phases. Your first base phase, picture like 3 to 5 hours a week, 2 to 4 sessions. Again, these are going to be where the sessions are a little bit longer in duration, 75 minutes each. The goal is anatomical adaptations, learning movements, addressing imbalances, or other issues that you have here. As you move into your next base phase, again, 3 to 5 hours a week, 2 to 3 sessions, and this is where we start to decrease. It's not a lot, it's just a little bit. Again, we're still focusing on that anatomical adaptation here. Base 3, if there is a base 3 for you, 3 to 5 hours a week, 2 to 3 sessions. This session is going to be 60 minutes, including your foam rolling. It's going to be where we start to really focus on the essentials of the session and start to whittle things down from there. Your build phases, you might not have 3, but if you do, the first build phase, 3 hours a week, 2 to 3 sessions, 60 minutes a week. You're going to be doing this about 2-3 times a week if you can. Focusing on the big 4, hinge, pull, squat, rotary stability. Super, super important that you do. Your second build phase, we are decreasing things dramatically here. 20 to 30 minutes, 4 to 5 times a week, or 45 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. And so the first one, this is where you start stacking onto workouts if you are someone who is time dependent and you can't go beyond a physical time limitation here. That is very, very critical that you do that. About 8 to 10 weeks before your peak race, you're still building major strength, but you don't really have enough times kind of going into the maintenance phase. Think like heavy kettlebells or bands at home. You're focusing on max strength here. So you're still building a little bit here, but you're not so crushing it that you're coming out of the gym feeling just dead. If you have a build 3, you're going to have 2 sessions a week, 45 to 75 minutes, full body routine. Has to involve a hinge or a pull for me, for sure. Absolutely. Again, this is only going to be if you do have time in your training phase. And if you don't, we're going to move into some of these other ones instead. Like the prep phase, 15 to 20 minutes, 4 to 6 times a week. So we're going back. Look back at that build 2. It's just decreasing just a little bit more. We're coming a little more focused in our sessions. We're going to have 1 heavy session a week. Those other ones, we're going to have 4 to 6 weeks before your race. But these all become super focused, okay? Your training stress for your lifting is going to be coming down here. In your endurance sessions, you might be approaching peak week. You might be starting to decrease some of these hours over there. So just think back to there. 2 weeks before your prep race, you're going to have 8 to 10 minute sessions 4 to 6 times a week, but you're only going to focus on your major areas there. These sessions are not going to be super heavy. picture these more as movement sessions for sure. If you don't, then you're definitely opening yourself up to some unneeded stress, and you're going to arrive at your A race really, really tired, really fatigued. You got to dial it back. You got to dial it back for sure. Most times you're going to have a pull, hinge, or rotary stability in here. I would argue that you need all three in there, but it's only going to be really 3 exercises, 2 to 3 sets, and that's it. It's going to be quick, simple, easy. We typically stack these at the end of a workout just to keep everyone happy, and just to keep everyone from going into the gym as a full-blown session. It's really not a need to at this point, and you have 1,000 things that you're focusing on anyway, so you don't need to increase that other life stress there. So, transition phase, 3 to 5 hours a week, 3 to 5 sessions. You definitely need a week off before starting up again. If you're doing a full, I would argue you need a little bit more time off. And dynamic warm-ups are going to be a huge part of this one, just because you want to make these sessions a little more fun. And I caution you that you don't want to jump into these too early on afterwards. You really want your athlete to have a high motivation factor in this. If this athlete is not really motivated to get back into the gym and not train a ton, then just avoid this. Avoid this until after 3, maybe even 4 weeks off. Then we need to start having a conversation. Let's get them back into the gym. Let's get them back on their bike, running, swimming, whatever their endurance event is. And you can move from there. But if you rush into this phase, it's not going to be good. So just keep that in mind. So how much time do we typically need? At the very minimum, you're going to need twice a week. I would argue triathletes need even more time, just because they need more stability throughout those joints, and they need to train their body and movement awareness a little bit more. 45 to 75 minutes each might be a little bit high, but again, if you can only do 50 minutes twice a week, that's 100 extra minutes that you weren't doing last year. So just keep that in mind. 1 time a week during the middle of the season and the high time of season, it can be enough. But again, that's only going to be enough for so long before you start to see some declines in your performance. So just keep that in mind. Typically 4 to 8 weeks is all it takes, you know. It's pretty much all it takes. Triathletes for Olympic and half distance, the 3 times a week is realistic to fit into your training. And if it's not, you're probably doing a little too much training on the side. Ideal is 3 times a week. This is the optimal stimulus for your nervous system to see necessary adaptations. So just keep that in mind. You really don't want to let this slip. You don't want to let this slip at all. If you are one of those people that just has way too much time and you don't know what to do with it, you can do 4 times a week for sure. But you really need to think about your ability to absorb this training stress, and if it will impact your training outside of lifting. If it's not, and you can handle it and you don't see any negative indicators, then go for it, okay? But if you don't have the amount of time, then you obviously can't do that. Different types of athletes are going to have different types of needs. The time-crunched athlete, 3 to 4 times a week of highly focused sessions are going to be your bread and butter. You could stack these sessions immediately before or after workouts. I put swim or bike here, but you can be anything. If you run at a gym, you run on a treadmill and you're right at the gym, do that lifting session right after, okay? And you're going to need limited warm-up because you're already going to be doing that because you're already going to be doing that training session, that endurance training session before. So you're going to already be warmed up. I talked about this before, but during the base phase, you might want to just totally decrease the amount of time that you are doing your endurance sessions and add a lift session in. Great strategy to use. A lot of people don't think about that because they have to hit their 4 bikes a week, or they have to hit 20 miles of running a week. So just keep that in mind. The social athlete, 8 to 12 hours a week, you're going to aim for about 1 to 2 full sessions. If you cannot hit that, you might have 1 full session and then 3 additional time crunched sessions immediately after a workout. If you have the biking is life or endurance athletics is all I ever want to do, and I don't want to do anything else with friends or social anything, then you're going to have a ton of time. 3 to 4 days a week of 60 to 75 minutes a piece, or you're going to do 40 to 60 minutes 2 to 4 times a week right after some of your sessions. So again, just keep in mind if you can absorb that training stress and if it is the right schedule for you. Because if you get overloaded in December and you're starting to approach burnout in December and your main race isn't until the end of July, that is a recipe for disaster. So don't overdo it and build yourself up over time.